Just after noon on June 8, 1943, the water inside Hiroshima Bay looked peaceful enough to fool anyone. The sea was calm, the sky was clear, and the great battleship Mutsu sat at anchor like a steel city floating on the surface. Sailors moved across her decks in slow, routine motion. Some cleaned equipment. Some checked ropes and fittings. Some leaned on the rail, staring toward the distant shore. If you want more content like this, subscribe now and comment below. Nothing suggested danger. Nothing suggested that in less than a minute, one of the most powerful ships in the Imperial Japanese Navy would tear itself apart and send hundreds of men into the sea. The explosion did not come with warning. No alarm, no aircraft overhead, no torpedo trail in the water. It began deep inside the ship, in the heart of her ammunition storage, with a sudden flash and a violent force that split steel like paper. The blast was so powerful that nearby ships felt the shock hit their hulls. Sailors looked up and saw a wall of smoke rising into the sky. In seconds, Mutsu was no longer a proud battleship. She was a broken mass of fire, metal, and collapsing decks. You can almost feel that moment, the heat rushing outward, the sound so loud it pushes the air from your lungs, the confusion that follows when something strong and familiar disappears in front of your eyes. Mutsu was not an ordinary ship. She was one of only 2 Nagato-class battleships among the most advanced and respected warships in the world when she was built. Commissioned on October 24, 1921, she carried 8 massive 41-centimetre main guns, weapons powerful enough to strike targets more than 30 kilometres away. Her armour was thick. Her engines were strong. Her presence alone represented naval power and national pride. By 1943, the Pacific War had entered a difficult phase for Japan. Early victories had faded. The loss of aircraft carriers at Midway in June 1942 had changed the balance of power. American industry was producing ships and aircraft in numbers Japan struggled to match. Still, battleships like Mutsu remained important. They were symbols of strength. They were reminders of earlier dominance. They were expected to play a role if a decisive naval battle came. At the time of the disaster, Mutsu was anchored at Hashirajima anchorage, near the western entrance of Hiroshima Bay. The location served as a gathering and training area for the combined fleet. It was considered secure. There were no enemy forces nearby. The ship was not in combat readiness. Life on board followed a normal routine. Captain Teruhiko Miyoshi commanded Mutsu. He was a steady officer, known for discipline and calm leadership. The crew included experienced sailors, new recruits, gunnery specialists, engineers, signalmen, and trainees. More than 1,400 men lived and worked on the ship. The morning of June 8th began like any other. Inspections took place. Maintenance crews moved through compartments. Officers reviewed schedules. Below deck, ammunition teams worked near the magazines, checking storage and handling procedures. Above deck, the sun reflected off the metal surfaces. The sea carried only the sound of small waves against the hull. Just after midday, the routine continued. Lunch preparations had started. Some sailors rested in shaded areas. Others continued assigned tasks. There was no sense of urgency. Then, without warning, a violent detonation erupted near turret number 3. The explosion came from the area where shells and propellant charges were stored. A flash burst upward through internal compartments, followed instantly by a powerful blast that ripped open the structure of the ship. The force pushed upward and outward at the same time. Deck plates lifted, bulkheads shattered, flames shot through passageways. The sound rolled across the anchorage like thunder. Nearby crews turned toward the noise and saw a towering column of smoke and fire. Burning fragments flew into the air. The center of Mutsu had been torn apart. Inside the ship, chaos replaced routine. Lights went out. Heat spread quickly. Smoke filled corridors. Men were thrown from their positions. Compartments collapsed. trapping sailors under debris and twisted metal. The explosion split Mutsu into major sections. The stern began sinking almost immediately. The forward portion remained afloat for a short time, but fires spread rapidly. Water poured into damaged compartments. You can almost imagine the scene below deck. Darkness, smoke, the sound of rushing water, men shouting for help, trying to find ladders and escape routes that were now blocked. Above deck, those who survived the initial blast tried to understand what had happened. Some were burned, some were injured by flying metal. Others stared in shock at the destruction around them. Rescue operations began within minutes. Boats from nearby ships rushed toward the wreck. Sailors jumped into the water, some trying to swim away from the flames, others searching for friends and crewmates. Oil spread across the surface, turning the water dark. Near pieces of the ship floated everywhere. Despite the rapid response, the damage was catastrophic. Hundreds of men had been inside the ammunition areas when the explosion occurred. Many died instantly. Others were trapped in flooding compartments. In less than an hour, the remains of Mutsu settled into the water. Smoke continued to rise long after the main blast. The sea, once calm, now carried debris and bodies. Out of more than 1,400 people on board, 768 were dead. The scale of the disaster stunned the Imperial Japanese Navy. A battleship had been destroyed without enemy attack. The loss was not only physical, but psychological. If a ship like Mutsu could explode at anchor, what did that mean for the rest of the fleet? Investigators moved quickly, but quietly. The incident was treated as a military secret. Wartime censorship ensured the public would not learn full details. Official statements were limited. Families received brief notices. The full story remained hidden. Naval officers and engineers examined what remained of the ship. Divers entered the wreckage, studying the damage patterns. The centre of the explosion clearly came from the area near turret number 3. The ammunition magazines there had been completely destroyed. The question remained, what caused the explosion? One theory focused on accidental ignition of propellant charges. Naval ammunition at the time used powder that could become unstable under certain conditions. Improper storage, heat, or mechanical friction might trigger combustion. If a single charge ignited, it could set off a chain reaction powerful enough to destroy the entire magazine. Another theory pointed towards sabotage. A sailor named Seaman Second Class Kiyoshi Okamoto became a subject of suspicion. He had reportedly been disciplined earlier and might have held resentment. Some investigators believed he may have intentionally set off the explosion. There was no clear evidence, but the possibility remained. The investigation never reached a fully confirmed conclusion. Records were incomplete. Witness accounts were limited. The chaos of the explosion made precise reconstruction difficult. For the Navy, uncertainty was deeply troubling. The loss could not be blamed on enemy action. It came from within. Survivors carried memories that would stay with them for life. One recalled being thrown across a compartment by the shock wave, waking up surrounded by smoke and broken equipment. Another described climbing through a narrow opening as water rushed in behind him. Others remembered seeing friends vanish in flames and debris. You can almost stand beside them, hearing the crack of metal, feeling the ship tilt beneath your feet, knowing that escape might not come in time. The wreck of Mutsu remained in Hiroshima Bay for years. During the war, resources focused on combat operations, and full salvage was delayed. Sections of the ship lay on the seabed, twisted and broken, a silent reminder of the explosion. After the war ended, more detailed recovery efforts began. Divers retrieved parts of the hull, sections of armour, and even some of the massive guns. Each piece told part of the story, showing how the blast had moved outward from the magazine area. Still, the exact cause remained uncertain. Historians later studied the incident carefully. Many leaned toward accidental ignition. Naval ammunition was powerful, but sensitive. A small mistake could create catastrophic results. Others continued to believe sabotage could not be ruled out. Regardless of cause, the impact was clear. Mutsu was gone. Hundreds of sailors were dead. And the Navy had lost one of its strongest symbols. The tragedy also showed how war could bring danger even in moments of routine. The men on board were not fighting. They were not preparing for battle. They were living an ordinary day at anchor, eating, working, thinking about home. In seconds, everything changed. The loss of Mutsu came at a time when the role of battleships was already shifting. Aircraft carriers, submarines, and naval aviation were becoming more decisive. The age of the battleship was fading, even though many officers still believed in their importance. Mutsu had represented a different era. Heavy guns, thick armour, direct confrontation. Her destruction marked not only a tragic accident, but also a moment in the changing nature of naval warfare. For families, the pain lasted long after the war. Many received only brief official notices. Questions remained unanswered for decades. Some never learned exactly where their loved ones had been when the explosion occurred. Memorials were eventually built. Names were recorded. Ceremonies honoured the dead. The story of Mutsu slowly entered public memory. Today, standing near Hiroshima Bay, it is hard to imagine the scale of that moment. The water looks calm. Ships pass quietly. Nothing suggests that beneath the surface lies the wreckage of a battleship and the memory of hundreds of lives lost. Yet the history remains. The explosion of Mutsu is one of the most mysterious naval disasters of the Second World War. It did not occur in battle. It did not involve enemy attack. It happened suddenly in a place considered safe. You can almost picture the seconds before it happened. A sailor wiping down equipment, another laughing with a friend, someone looking toward the shore, thinking about home. Then a flash, a roar, and the world changes. The men aboard Mutsu were part of a larger story of war, but their final moments were personal. They were individuals with routines, friendships, and hopes. Their lives ended not in a famous battle, but in an unexpected disaster. The Navy continued fighting after the loss. Ships sailed, aircraft launched, battles were fought across the Pacific. But the memory of Mutsu remained within the fleet, a reminder that even the strongest machines could fail without warning. Decades later, historians, divers, and naval experts continue to study the wreck and the records. Each detail adds another piece to the puzzle. Each survivor account brings the moment closer. Still, the full truth may never be known. Maybe it was a spark from unstable powder. Maybe a handling mistake. Maybe an intentional act. Or maybe a combination of factors lost in the chaos of that day. What remains certain is the moment itself. Just after noon, in calm water, a great battleship exploded. Steel tore apart. Fire rose into the sky, and 768 sailors vanished in seconds. Their story is not only about loss, it is about the reality of war, where danger exists, even in silence, where routine can turn into disaster, and where history sometimes changes in a single instant. You can almost hear the echo of that explosion across the water, even now, not as a sound, but as a memory carried through time. A reminder of a day when everything seemed normal until it was not. In the months after the explosion, the Imperial Japanese Navy struggled quietly with what the loss meant. Training schedules changed. Ammunition handling procedures were reviewed in detail. Officers demanded stricter inspection of magazines, propellant storage, and safety protocols. No official announcement explained these changes, but within naval circles everyone understood the reason. A single internal failure had destroyed a battleship. That could not happen again. Engineers studied how propellant charges were manufactured and stored. The Navy relied on large quantities of cordite and powder, materials powerful but sensitive. Temperature, moisture, and physical stress could affect stability. Investigators examined whether long-term storage in the magazines had caused deterioration. Some reports suggested that certain batches of powder were more volatile than expected, especially after years at sea. At the same time, internal security tightened. Background checks on sailors increased. Discipline records were reviewed more closely. Commanders feared sabotage, even if they could not prove it. War created pressure, and pressure could push individuals toward unpredictable actions. The idea that one man might have triggered the explosion remained a quiet fear among officers. For survivors, the days after the disaster were heavy with silence. Many were reassigned quickly, some transferred to other ships, others sent ashore for recovery. They carried memories they rarely spoke about. The Navy valued discipline and composure, and emotional discussion was limited. Still, the images remained in their minds. Fire spreading across the deck, the sound of the blast, the sight of the ship breaking apart. You can almost imagine a survivor standing alone at night, replaying those seconds again and again, wondering why he lived while others did not. The location of the disaster, Hashirajima anchorage, continued to serve the fleet. Ships came and went. Training exercises resumed. From a distance, it looked like routine naval life had returned, but beneath the surface, the memory of Mutsu remained part of every operation. Every ammunition check, every safety drill, every moment near the magazines carried the quiet reminder of what had happened. The story of Mutsu also reflected a wider truth about naval warfare during the Second World War. Battleships were powerful, but they were also complex machines filled with fuel, ammunition, electrical systems, and heavy mechanical equipment. One failure inside that system could be as deadly as enemy fire. Technology brought strength, but it also brought risk. As the war continued into 1944 and 1945, the focus of naval combat shifted even further toward aircraft carriers and air power. Battleships still fought, but they were no longer the center of naval strategy. The explosion of Mutsu became, in hindsight, a symbol of the end of an era. The age when heavy guns ruled the sea was slowly fading. After the war, when Japan began rebuilding and historical records slowly opened, the story of Mutsu gained more attention. Survivors spoke more freely. Investigations were reviewed. Historians compared reports, testimonies, and physical evidence. Yet even with time and research, certainty remained out of reach. The explosion had erased its own clues. Divers who later explored the wreck described twisted steel plates, shattered internal frames, and massive damage centered near the magazine. The blast pattern suggested a sudden internal detonation rather than a slow fire. It had happened fast. Too fast for containment, too fast for response. You can almost picture the exact second. A spark, a flash, pressure building in a closed space. Then a violent release that the ship could not survive. For the families of the 768 sailors who died, DC closure came slowly, if at all. Memorial services were held years later, names engraved, stories shared. Some relatives visited the area, standing by the water, looking out toward the place where the ship had vanished. They did not see the wreck beneath the surface, but they knew it was there. History often remembers famous battles, heroic charges, and decisive victories. But the story of Mutsu is different. It is about a quiet day, a routine moment, and a disaster that came without warning. It is about sailors who were not fighting, not expecting danger, yet faced it in an instant. The sea today looks the same as it did that morning. Calm water, clear sky, ships passing slowly in the distance. Nothing shows the violence that once erupted there. But memory does not disappear with time. It settles, like the wreck itself, beneath the surface, waiting to be remembered. And every time the story is told, the moment returns. Just after noon, a peaceful anchorage, a powerful battleship at rest. Then a sudden explosion, a column of smoke, and 768 lives lost in seconds. If you want more content like this, subscribe now and comment below.